Imagine a land older than almost any civilization you can name, a place where empires rose and fell like sandcastles against an endless tide of conquerors, where kings called themselves King of Kings and meant it, where one single decision, just one religious choice 500 years ago, created an entire national identity that still defines a nation today. This is the story of Iran, 5,000 years. Let's go. Chapter 1. The Land Before Time. The story starts around 3000 BCE in southwest Iran, where the Elamites were building one of the world's first civilizations. They had cities, they had writing, they had monumental architecture. And here's the weird part. They had a society where women could actually inherit power and run things. Yeah, progressive gender norms, 4,000 years ago. What happened, guys? The Elamites were doing great until the Assyrians came along and, in the immortal words of every empire ever, ruined everything. By 645 BCE, Elam was gone. Dust. Nothing. But while Elam was rising and falling, something else was happening. From the Central Asian steppes came a group of people called the Indo-Iranians, or as they called themselves, the Aryans. And no, not that kind of Aryan. That's a completely different thing from much later. Don't worry about it. These migrants settled the Iranian plateau and eventually split into two groups, the Medes in Ashu, the northwest, and the Persians in the south. The Medes got organized first, under a king named Cyrus, and I promise that's his real name. They did something huge. They teamed up with Babylon and destroyed the Assyrian Empire. Completely. Gone. The bullies of the ancient Middle East eliminated. The Medes were feeling pretty good about themselves, top dogs, rulers of Iran, masters of their destiny. Their Persian vassals, however, had other plans. Chapter 2. The First Superpower. In 559 BCE, Cyrus the Great became king of Persia. He looked at his Median grandfather's empire and decided he wanted it, so he took it. Then he kept going. He conquered Lydia and captured Croesus, a king so rich we still say rich as Croesus. Then in 539, he walked into Babylon bloodlessly because the locals hated their own king so much they basically welcomed Cyrus with flowers. But here's what made Cyrus different. Instead of looting and enslaving, he issued policies letting people keep their religions, customs, and local leaders. He even let the Jews return to Jerusalem and helped pay for their temple. The Bible literally calls him a Messiah, a Persian king, called Messiah by the Jews. Cyrus built the first true multinational empire stretching from Egypt to India. 3 continents. His successor, Darius the Great, looked at this empire and thought, it needs bureaucracy. So he invented the satrapy system, provinces run by governors who answered to him, plus a separate military commander so nobody could get too powerful. He built the royal road with postal stations so fast, Herodotus said nothing stops these messengers. He created standardized currency. He built Persepolis, a ceremonial capital designed to make visiting delegations feel small. Darius also tried invading Greece, lost at Marathon. His son Xerxes tried again, got stopped at Thermopylae by 300 Spartans, though he eventually burned Athens. These Greco-Persian wars became an obsession that weakened the empire until Alexander the Great conquered it all in 330 BCE. Chapter 3. Empire Boogaloo. Alexander's successors, the Seleucids, tried to Hellenize Iran. It didn't stick. Local powers chipped away at them until the Parthians emerged. The Parthians ruled for nearly 5 centuries, and they were chaos. A decentralized empire where noble families constantly assassinated kings, challenged authority, and generally made governing impossible. But militarily, they were legendary. They perfected the Parthian shot, pretending to retreat while turning backward in the saddle to fire arrows at pursuers. The Romans hated this. In 53 BCE, a Roman named Crassus invaded Parthia expecting easy loot. The Parthians destroyed his entire army. Legend says they poured molten gold down his throat. In 224 CE, a Persian vassal named Ardashir got tired of Parthian nonsense, defeated them, and founded the Sasanian dynasty. He called himself Shahanshah, King of Kings, framing it as a restoration of Persian glory from 500 years earlier. The Sasanians made Zoroastrianism an aggressive state religion and fought the Romans and Byzantines for centuries. Their greatest king, Khosrow I in the 6th century, reformed taxes, sponsored universities, translated Greek and Indian scientific texts into Persian, and ran what was arguably the most advanced state on earth at the time. But centuries of war with Byzantium exhausted both empires. And into that weakness stepped a new power from the south, Arab armies carrying Islam. Chapter 4: The Conquest and the Renaissance. The Arab conquest of Iran between 633 and 651 CE is the single biggest discontinuity in Iranian history. Everything changed. The Arabs, united under Islam and fired up by religious fervor, smashed the already weakened Sasanian army. The decisive battle was Qadisiyah in 636, where the Arab general Sa'd defeated the Sasanian commander Rostam, who died in combat, and that was basically it. The capital fell. A few years later, the Battle of Nahavand in 642 shattered whatever was left. The last Sasanian king, Yazdegerd III, fled and was eventually assassinated in 651. End of empire, end of pre-Islamic Iran. Now, the Arabs didn't destroy Persian culture, far from it. They actually kept a lot of Sasanian administrative systems because, well, the Persians had been running a sophisticated empire for centuries, while the Arabs were still organizing themselves as tribes. You adapt what works. Zoroastrians initially had to pay a special tax, the jizya, but they were generally allowed to keep practicing their religion. Fire temples weren't systematically destroyed. The conquest was more about political takeover than cultural erasure. And slowly, over about 2 centuries, most Iranians converted to Islam. Why? Several reasons. Social mobility. Muslims got better treatment in the new system. Economic, you didn't have to pay the jizya anymore. And theological appeal. Islam preached equality among believers, which sounded pretty good compared to the rigid, caste-like social structure of the late Sasanian era. Here's the thing though, as Iranians became Muslim, they also Islamized Persian culture and Persianized Islam. The Abbasid Caliphate, which ruled the Muslim world from Baghdad, was heavily dependent on Persian administrators, Persian bureaucratic systems, and Persian intellectual traditions. Iranians practically ran the caliphate while pretending not to. By the 9th and 10th centuries, as central authority weakened, native Iranian dynasties started rising again. This is what scholars call the Persian Renaissance, or the Persian Intermezzo. The Samanid dynasty in Central Asia was crucial here. They shifted the high culture back to Persian language. Under their patronage, the modern Persian language, Farsi Dari, was standardized. Poetry flourished. And most importantly, a poet named Ferdowsi began writing the Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. This is a big deal. The Shahnameh is 60,000 couplets. That's longer than the Iliad and Odyssey combined. And it preserved all of pre-Islamic Iranian mythology, history, legends, and identity in Persian. Ferdowsi spent 30 years on it. He did it partly because he refused to write in Arabic, which was the prestige language of the time. He essentially saved the Persian language from being completely replaced. Every Iranian schoolchild still knows stories from the Shahnameh today. Ferdowsi is a national hero. Around the same time, the Buyid dynasty, originally from northern Iran, did something wild. They were Shia Muslims who conquered Baghdad, which was the center of Sunni Islam, and they made the Abbasid Caliph their puppet. For about a century, Shia rulers controlled the nominal head of Sunni Islam. The irony was not lost on anyone. Then came the Seljuks, a Turkic people from Central Asia, who swept in, unified Iran, under Sunni Islam again, and actually became the protectors of the Abbasid Caliphate, full circle. But then, in the early 13th century, disaster arrived: the Mongols. Genghis Khan's invasion of Iran starting in 1219 was catastrophic. Estimates vary, but millions died. Cities were sacked. Irrigation systems, the qanats that had watered Persian agriculture for millennia, were destroyed. The Mongols didn't understand how they worked, so they broke them, and entire regions became uninhabitable. Genghis's grandson Hulegu sacked Baghdad in 1258, ending the Abbasid Caliphate for good. It was brutal. But here's the pattern you start noticing with Iran. The invaders come, they destroy everything, and then they become Persianized. The Ilkhanate, the Mongol state that ruled Iran, eventually converted to Islam, adopted Persian culture. patronized Persian art and historiography, and became another Persian dynasty basically. Same thing happened later with Timur, also known as Tamerlane, who devastated the region in the 14th century, but whose successors presided over a brilliant cultural flowering in Herat. Iran absorbs its conquerors. It's what it does. Chapter 5, The Decision That Made Iran. Now we reach the moment that explains why Iran is the way it is today. In 1501, a 15-year-old boy named Ismail led a militant religious army, captured Tabriz, and declared himself Shah of the new Safavid Empire. Then he did something unprecedented. He proclaimed Twelver Shi'ism as the mandatory state religion. Before this, Iran was mostly Sunni or religiously mixed. Shi'ism was a minority sect. Ismail took that marginalized theology and weaponized it into national policy. Why? Geopolitics. To his west, the massive Ottoman Empire, Sunni. To his northeast, the Uzbeks, also Sunni. By declaring Shia Islam the official faith, Ismail drew an absolute ideological line between Iran and every neighbor. We are not you. We will never be you. That one decision in 1501 is why Iran is Shia today, 500 years later, still defining Iranian identity versus the mostly Sunni Muslim world. It worked brilliantly, until 1514, when Ottoman Sultan Selim I first showed up with cannons at the Battle of Chaldiran and annihilated Ismail's cavalry. Lesson: religious fervor is great, but guns help. The Safavids peaked under Shah Abbas the Great, 1587 to 1629. He dismantled the unruly tribesmen who'd put his dynasty in power and replaced them with a loyal army of enslaved Circassian and Georgian youths, trained from childhood to serve only him. He moved the capital to Isfahan and built it into one of the most spectacular cities on earth. He monopolized the silk trade, courted European merchants, and played empires against each other. But after Abbas died, the Safavids declined. In 1722, Afghan forces besieged Isfahan. After 6 months of starvation, Chapter 6, Chaos, Reformers, and Foreign Wolves. What followed was 50 years of chaos until Nader Shah, a military genius and complete tyrant, united Iran by force, invaded India in 1739, sacked Delhi, and carted off the Peacock Throne and Koh-i-Noor Diamond. Then his own officers assassinated him. Then came Karim Khan Zand, the rare decent ruler who refused the title Shah, called himself merely Deputy of the Subjects, rebuilt the country, and is remembered fondly. When he died, civil war erupted, and Aga Muhammad Khan Qajar founded the Qajar dynasty, which would rule until 1925. The Qajar era was defined by foreign predation. Russia and Britain, the Great Game, carved up Iranian influence. Humiliating treaties in 1813 and 1828 ceded the entire Caucasus region to Russia permanently. Iran's best hope was Amir Kabir, prime minister in the mid-19th century. He founded Iran's first modern university, centralized taxes, fought corruption, and tried to drag Iran into modernity. Naturally, his enemies had him assassinated in a bathhouse in 1852. Symbolic. Discontent grew. The tobacco protest of 1891, when Britain got a monopoly on all tobacco in Iran, sparked nationwide demonstrations led by clergy and merchants. It worked. The concession was canceled. This momentum produced the Constitutional Revolution of 1905. Protesters forced the Shah to accept a constitution and create Iran's first parliament, the Majlis. Democracy, briefly. Then Russia invaded in 1911 to protect its interests, effectively crushing the experiment. During World War I, Iran became a devastated battleground where Russian, British, and Ottoman armies all fought. The state collapsed. Chapter 7, Coups, Kings, and Ayatollahs. From the ashes rose Reza Shah Pahlavi, who seized power in a 1921 coup, crowned himself Shah in 1925, and launched forced modernization. Secular courts, Western dress codes, including banning the veil in 1936, the Trans-Iranian Railway, the University of Tehran. Authoritarian but transformative. World War II got him ousted by Britain and the Soviet Union. His son, Mohammad Reza Shah, took over, inexperienced, young, and sitting on oil. The post-war period saw democracy briefly return under Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who nationalized Iran's oil in 1951. Wildly popular, domestically, existentially threatening to Britain, Britain convinced the CYA to help overthrow him. Operation Ajax 1953, Mossadegh gone. The Shah returned as an autocrat with American backing. Iranians have never forgotten. With oil money flowing, the Shah launched his White Revolution in 1963. Land reform, women's suffrage, industrialization. But he ruled through his secret police, Savak, which tortured opponents, rapid modernization alienated traditionalists, corruption enriched his friends. The gap between glittering Tehran and impoverished villages widened. Into that gap stepped Ayatollah Khomeini, a cleric exiled for criticizing the Shah. His cassette tapes circulated through Iran's bazaars. 1978 brought mass protests. January 1979, the Shah fled. February, Khomeini returned on an Air France jet to millions cheering in the streets. He created something new, an Islamic republic based on Vilayat-e-Faqih, guardianship of the Islamic jurist, a system where the supreme religious leader holds absolute power over everything, with elected institutions subordinate to unelected clerical bodies. Theocracy wearing democratic clothing. Then Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded, triggering the catastrophic Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 88. 1 million dead, chemical weapons, 8 years of horror that solidified the regime's power and militarized Iranian society. Khomeini died in 1989. His successor, Ali Khamenei, lacks Khomeini's authority but holds even more constitutional power. Since then, reformist presidents elected and sidelined, the nuclear program sparking international crisis. The JCPOA nuclear deal, achieved then abandoned by America. The 2022 death of Mahsa Amini in morality police custody, igniting nationwide protests, women burning hijabs chanting, "Woman, life, freedom." The hardline president dying in a helicopter crash. A lone reformer elected. The same tension repeating, authority versus freedom, isolation versus connection, theocracy versus the future. 5,000 years. Think about that. The Elamites building ziggurats while Egyptians were still figuring out pyramids. Cyrus the freeing the Jews and being called Messiah. Darius inventing bureaucracy that Rome would copy. The Parthians making Romans look foolish, the Sasanians fighting Byzantium to a standstill for centuries. Then the Arabs came, and instead of destroying Persian culture, the Persians Islamized it and Persianized Islam. Ferdowsi writing 60,000 couplets to save his language from extinction. The Mongols slaughtering millions, then becoming patrons of Persian art. Timur devastating cities, then his descendants producing some of the finest poetry and painting in human history. A 15-year-old boy in 1501 deciding where's Shia now, one religious choice that separated Iran from every neighbor for half a millennium and counting. Shah Abbas building Isfahan into the most beautiful city on earth while playing empires against each other. Amir Kabir trying to drag Iran into modernity before they murdered him in a bathhouse. Iranians fighting for a constitution, winning it briefly, then watching foreign powers crush it. The CIA overthrowing their democracy in 1953 because oil. The Shah modernizing while torturing. Khomeini returning from exile to create something the world had never seen, a modern theocracy with nuclear ambitions. And now, protests in the streets, women burning hijabs. Woman, life, freedom. The same tension that has animated Iranian history for 5,000 years. The struggle between those who want openness, pluralism, connection to the world, and those who want purity, authority, exceptionalism, still unresolved. Empires rise and fall, invaders come and go, but Iran adapts, Iran absorbs, Iran survives. Was Khomeini's revolution worth it? Ask the woman in Tehran who just threw her veil into the fire. She's still deciding.